There we are. Here we are again. We're sorry about that yet again. I thought maybe we were going to talk over the opening, but we didn't. But that's okay. We're all here. Jack Lord, and of course, you see down at the bottom, Jerry Oates from the legendary wrestler and entrepreneur back with us, or back for the first time with us. And we're so happy to have him. Jack Lord, you want to pick up and start with the questioning? And well, let's just say welcome, Jerry.
Thank you guys for having me.
We're glad to have you. Glad to have you for sure.
Well, let's just start from the beginning. Jerry, who trained you? Who got you started? Why did you want to become a professional wrestler to begin with?
Well, when I was a kid, my first love was baseball, and then I got an illness when I was, like 12 or 13, and it messed my baseball career up. And I knew I wanted to be an athlete. And, of course, my sister married Dick Steinborn, and kind of the rest is history. And even though I had a brother-in-law in wrestling, it was very hard to get in back then. I actually started in 1970, but I know they were up here visiting from Orlando and here in Columbus, Georgia. During the holidays, it was Christmas, and I told him, I said, look, I want to start wrestling. He said, really? He said, I want you to train me. He said, how am I going to do that? You live here in Columbus, and I live in Orlando. He said, how do you think that's possible? 3 months later, I was living in Orlando. But I was down there quite a while. He never mentioned it. And I finally told him one day, I said, look, when are we going to start training? He said, when I'm ready. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
And started training me. And I couldn't have had a better teacher. And I couldn't have started in a better place than starting in Florida.
Yeah.
There's some great talent there. And I got to wrestle, even as a rookie, I got to wrestle a lot of great talent down there. And that's the only way you learn. Wrestling people better than you and more experience. And the Florida office was good to me. Eddie was good to me. Louis Chalet was the booker at the time. And I started part-time, I wrestled nearly every weekend. And then I finally told Dickie, I said, tell Louis I want to start full-time. He said, let me talk to him. And sure enough, they did. And that's kind of how I got started. But there's a lot more detail than that. But
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and a lot of viewers that watch this know that I've said this a lot. Louis Talay actually trained me.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, and that little short guy beat me to death.
Is Louis still living?
Yeah, he is. He is. Don Curtis's wife. I have her on Facebook, and she posted the other day that she had talked to his wife and that he was doing fairly well.
He lives in the Carolinas somewhere, or
I believe so.
he was a great piece of talent.
Oh yeah,
And a great booker.
He
I
was
thought.
good to me. I mean, he stretched me because he's trying to teach me, but I learned.
Right.
And it wasn't just the ring stuff. He taught me business too.
Right. He was a good booker. He was a good
Yeah.
booker.
Yeah. So who was your first opponent?
Duke Kiamuka.
We have mentioned that name many times.
Yes, we have. We think we butchered his name many times on here.
I had my first match in March of 1970, and it was in where was it? Not Fort Pierce, but I thought I'd never forget it. Yeah,
Well, you would have if we didn't ask. You knew it right off the bat. Fort Myers.
that's exactly where it was. Fort Myers. I was so nervous. I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. And to this day, I don't even remember walking to the ring. Because all the guys knew I was Dickie's brother-in-law, and they was going to watch it, and you wanted to do good. But I traveled with Dickie a lot, in Florida. And he was just wrestling part-time because he helped his dad promote Orlando, and they had a gym there. And but when we came up from Georgia, then we traveled every night. He would always tell me after every match, every night, what I did wrong, not what I did right. And I mean, that was the experience, you know.
Yep.
And I was blessed in that aspect of it.
Well, most of our listeners are, they're big wrestling fans. A lot of these guys have been asking for you for a while. So we're glad to have you on here. But we have a lot of new listeners too, a lot of young folks that, they're wanting to learn the history of professional wrestling. That's why we do what we do, to preserve our history and present it, so that people can learn about it. So let me go over just real quick some of the titles that you have held in your career. What I could find out there. You were the NWA Southern States World Tag Team Champions with Mike George. The NWA Central States Heavyweight Champion. Again, the Central States Tag Champs with your brother Ted. The NWA Georgia Tag Team Champions with your brother Ted. The All Japan Pro Wrestling All Asia Tag Team Champions with your brother Ted. The NWA Tri-State North American Heavyweight Champion, you defeated Dick Murdoch for that title in 1977, I believe it said.
That is correct.
The NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team titles with Jesse the Body Ventura.
Wow.
NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight title. The NWA Central States Tag Team titles again with your brother Ted. And the NWA Georgia Tag Team titles with Ron Garvin. Now, that's just a few, I'm sure, of all the titles that you bestowed. And of course, we understand in the industry, titles are bestowed on people that they feel can carry the championship and make it mean something.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I was honored to have all those titles along with different partners and my brother, but it was an experience that I'll never forget. Never.
Yeah, that's awesome. What all territories did you work in your time?
Well, I started in Florida, and we were going to go to Australia, and there was a deal put together. Barnett was going to be leaving Australia, and there was a bunch of them going to get together and buy Australia, and so I quit. I quit my job in Florida. I hadn't been wrestling full time that long, and I came up to Georgia, and my brother-in-law and sister and his and their family were coming up, and then we was going to Australia, but the deal fell through. And Dickie called me one night. He said, I mean, they sold their home, their cars, furniture, everything.
Wow.
And so he called me on a Sunday night. He said, the deal's off. I said, what deal's off? He said, we're not going to Australia. I said, well, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? He said, I'll be in Georgia in a few days. He said, I'll get us booked up there. And he did. And then we stayed here quite a while. And then I got booked in Mobile. And I worked down there for a while. Then I came back. Then I left there and went to Montgomery. My brother had just started. He was in Montgomery. Then we worked for Bill Golden. And then I got booked back in Georgia. And just as I did, Ray Gunkel passed away. And I was already booked with the original office. And so now it's a turmoil. So I get back to Georgia, and I'm caught in a trick. My father-in-law at the time was the promoter in Savannah. He promoted Savannah, Statesboro, Waycross, the east coast of Georgia, Jekyll Island, that part of the country, spot shows over there too. And they're telling me I got to get away from the so-called new office and go back with the original. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So, and Fred Ward here in Columbus, he was still where he was.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law went back with the original office, and here I am caught. So I go back with the original office. Now, my brother-in-law was with the new group, or which was really the original group, but
Right.
it's now the different other group. And so they bring my brother in, Gunkel Enterprise brings my brother in. Now he's on one side and I'm the other. And I know when we were running Augusta on Monday nights, we'd be at the Bell and they was in some skate center. We'd ride to Augusta together. I'd drop him off. We'd come back home together. Nobody ever said anything, but that's kind of how that went. And then I left there. I made a run to Dallas. Leo Garibaldi wanted me to come to Dallas, and he called me, and I said, "Sure." I said, "I'd love to come out there." So I went out there, and he took care of me. Leo had a heck of a head. I don't know if y'all was ever around Leo, but Leo was ahead of his time, and I worked out there, and he was a master at getting you over. He got me over the first night there. I beat Mulligan and Lanza the first night in Dallas.
Wow.
And I was over like a fat rat, And Fritz had retired, and Leo had told me, he said that he wanted me to find a young guy that would come out there and stay and get over and do this and this and this and this. And I love working out there. I love working Houston. We would work in Fort Worth on Monday, Dallas Tuesday, San Antonio on Wednesday, Corpus Thursday, and go to Houston on Friday. And it was great territory.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Saved money, making money. And then I know I was there 3 months. And Leo called me. He called me on a Wednesday morning. He said, "Are you in San Antonio tonight?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I need you to come by the arena." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll leave early." So we set up a time, and I went by there. And I told my wife at the time, I said, "I'm supposed to get my notice." She said, "What?" She said, "That's impossible." She said, "They love you out here." And so I went. Did you ever go to Dallas and work, Jack?
No, I never got the opportunity.
So I go down there to the arena, and Leo was there, and he said, "Come on out here in the arena." He said, "I want to talk to you." I said, "Okay." He said, "Do you have any idea why I called you down here?" And I knew Leo as a kid from, through Dickie. And I said, "Yeah, Leo." I said, "I got an idea." He said, "Why did I call you down here?" I said, "You supposed to give me my notice." He said, "That's right." And he said, "You have no idea how bad this makes me feel bringing you out here from Georgia. And you've done everything I asked you to do." And he said, "Fritz can't stand it." And Fritz started working again. It wasn't Fritz anymore. It was me.
Yeah.
Not that I was anything. Leo made me. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And so I left there, and Georgia took me back. And then my brother's still working, I guess, for Gunkel at that time. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And so I was working there, and Watts came in and started booking. And I think it was at the time. And he said, "You've been here a long time, but my wife's mother was very sick." And he said, "I know she's very sick, and you stay as long as you have to stay." And then Harley came in. And then things started getting better. I mean, my mother-in-law got a little better. And he said, Harley said, "I want to send you to Kansas City." I said, "Okay." And so I go to Kansas City. And then he ran into my brother at TV. We did, both companies did TBS. We went first, and then they would come in later behind us and do their taping. And Harley caught my brother. He said, "Look," he said, "Uncle's supposed to go out of business." He said, "I want to get you out there with your brother." And then so he came out there. And we had a heck of a run out there. I actually liked it out there. I'd never been out that in the Midwest like that, but I loved it out there. And then we left there and came back home. And we were doing good here. Tom Ernesto was doing the booking here. I love working for Tom. And then we got booked. We got booked in Japan, and we had some great matches with Thornton and Charles, Gordon and Goliath. There's different guys. I mean, we were doing great here. Then I had my first knee surgery, and then we got booked in Japan, and we go to Japan, and we come back. We don't have a job.
Wow.
We don't have a job. So my brother, I went on to Korea for a week. My brother came home. He didn't want to go to Korea, so I went. And they meet me in the airport, and he said, "We ain't got a job." I said, "We don't have a job." And Barnett told me when we got back, things would be even better for us. So I was looking forward to getting back home because I'd been out of work for nine weeks with that first knee surgery, and went to Japan and come back. And so anyhow, the next day, the office here in Columbus called me. They said, "Bill Watts wants you to call him." I said, "I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to Louisiana." Everybody knew those trips, right? So,
Yeah.
no, you got to call him. I said, "Look," I said, "I'm not going out there." You should never say never, right? So,
Yeah.
anyhow, next day I called Bill. If I'm boring, y'all tell me.
No,
Go, keep going.
Great
Keep going.
stuff.
You're doing great.
So the next morning I called Watts. He said, "Look," he said, "I want you to come out here." I said, "Bill, I always said I'd never come out there. Not because of you." I said, "Just the trips." He said, "Look," he said, "this was on like a Wednesday." He said, "We're doing TV Saturday morning in Shreveport. I'm going to send you a round trip ticket. And I want you to come out here and just look it over and see what you think." So I get out there. I fly out there. He picks me up at the airport. We stayed at the same hotel. He said, "We'll go to TV in the morning." Went to TV and blah, blah, blah. And there's some great talent there. Murdoch was there. Carl Cox was there. I can't remember all who was there when I got there. And I did he used to do two tapes. We did TV every other week. And so we're going back to the airport. And he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I said, I know a lot of these guys." And I said, "You got some great talent out here." And he said, "I tell you what." And he told me everything he would do for me if I come out there. He said, "I'll help you with some of these trips." He said, "I'll fly you on some of these long trips. I'll take care of you." Uh, and everything he said, he did. And I told him, I said, "All right." I said, "When you want me to start?" He said, "2 weeks from today." And so I went out there and I stayed, and I love working for him. And a lot of guys hated working for him. I mean, talked about him bad. I talked to him about 2 months ago. He called me and we talked, and it was uh, it was probably one of the best conversations I've had with a promoter. I even teamed up with him some out there, and we both started crying, and it was. And I told him, I said, "Bill, a lot of guys hated working for you." He said, "Oh, I know that." I said, "But you are one of the ones I love working for." I always knew where I stood with him.
Yeah.
I always knew where I stood with him, and he treated me unbelievable. And so I leave there. I'm there. So I'm working with Harley. I had beaten him on TV. I'm the North American champion, and he's the world champion. I beat him on TV, right on TV in Shreveport. That tape went all around. I worked with him all over out there. And so I'm working with him in New Orleans, and we're getting instructions. And he said, "I just come out of Portland, Oregon, and they want you in Portland." I said, "What?" He said, "They want you in Portland, Oregon." Now, they was always asking him when he'd come out there, because he was everywhere, you know. "You see any talent? You see any talent?" And he said, "I told Don Owens about you." And he said he'd seen you on TBS. And he said he'd love to have you. He said, "We'll call him tomorrow." So we called, and I went out there. Love working out there. I love Don Owens. So then I was out there, and my brother, he wound up in Charlotte. He was there a while, and I was home one night, and he called me when I was in Portland. He said, "You want to come to Charlotte?" I said, and that's when Charlotte was on fire. I mean, it was on fire. And so I said, "Yeah, that's a long way to go from Columbus, Georgia to Portland, Oregon." But anyhow, I said, "Yeah," I said, "I'd like to come out there." So what I did, I booked myself back across the country. I booked myself in Los Angeles. Leo was booking out there, and him and what was his name, Mike LaBelle, they did their
Yeah.
everything to try to get me to stay. I worked with Piper out there at the Olympic Auditorium. I wanted to wrestle in that building, They tried to get me to stay, and I said, I can't. I'm already booked in Charlotte. So I came back to Columbus and took off and went to Charlotte. And I know my first check I got from up there, I said, how long has this been going on? My brother said, it's been on fire. And, everybody had a spot there, And we were the tag team. That was a big tag team. We was semifinal every night. And the money, I never seen money like that in my life. And so we stayed, and we met a guy up there that had a business, and I said, man, we could go home and do that. So we got off the road. I was like 32, and we came home and opened a business, and I had some gym equipment, and so everybody in town, we were still wrestling too, here in Georgia some, and some guys came by there and said, we heard you got a gym here. I said, well, not really. I just had some pieces of equipment I'd bought over the years, and I had it stored, and I put it in another part of that building. Well, the next thing I know, this thing is growing like crazy. And then I wound up with that for almost 25 years running the gym. And that gym was good to me. And I was still going to Japan. I was still going, overseas and wrestling in different parts of the country. And I had my gym. I mean, I had a life that was, I couldn't believe the life I had. I was wrestling and running a gym and putting on bodybuilding shows, and I thought it would never end.
Now was the gym
bulletproof.
Was the gym the business that you were coming home to do, or did that just organically happen?
I'll tell you how that happened. A year ago yesterday, over the years, my gym had been closed like 19 years. And I have a niece here, which is Dickie's daughter, Dickie Steinborn's daughter, and my sister's daughter. Over the years, she always said, why don't you let's have an Oates Gym reunion. Have an Oates Gym. That's even before I moved. I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And so I'm in Savannah, and I told her, it was just a little over a year ago. We had the reunion a year ago yesterday, the first one. So I said, I called her. I had lost my wife, and she was from there, but Columbus was really home to her. She lived here longer than anywhere. Her dad was the promoter over there in Savannah. So he was gone. Her mother was gone. Then I lost her, and I was ready to come home, So I told my niece, I said, I'm going to come home for a few days. And she said, let's do an Oates Gym reunion. I said, I told her, I said, I'm coming. It's going to be 2 weeks, and I'm coming home for a few days. She said, I can put it together. I said, all right. So a guy called me that had a gym here. And he said, his name's Chico Getskow. And I've known him for like 30 years. He said, I got a gym here and blah, blah, blah. And he said, if you come home, we'll call it Oates Gym. We'll do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And so when I came home, the word had kind of leaked out. I didn't want anybody to know it yet. And they said, we heard you coming home to open Oates Gym again. I said, no, I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know. So before I went back to Savannah, we made the deal. And then I came 5 weeks later. That's how that started.
Wow. Wow. It just seems like things kind of just fall into your lap. It's just amazing.
Guys, I'm telling you.
Now you were talking about that you were in the Carolinas, and there was a guy doing a business, and y'all thought you could take that business to Columbus. Do you remember what business that was?
I do.
What was that?
This guy had a car detailing business, and my brother and I used to go up and hang around, and I watched what he was doing. I said, well, people at home know us. I said, and I said, Carolina the money was unbelievable, but I really wasn't happy there. Even though we were making probably more money than we ever made, it was just something not right, And I said, he started talking about, why don't we go home and open up a car detailing business? And I said, well, okay. So my dad found this building. We bought this building. We came home. We had every major car dealer in town. people trade their cars in. We take them and refurbish them, and not body work, but waxing them. And we had a crew that did the insides, and we did everything. And we were doing unbelievable. We was doing like 25 to 27 cars a day.
Wow.
We done opened a can of worms here, man. This is unbelievable. And then the interest rates went sky high. Cars stopped selling. And now my little gym, I had another part of the building there. I had a small gym, but this thing was growing like crazy. And I took the money, kept buying equipment, and so when the car business just started sucking, my brother said, "I'm going back on the road." I said, "What do you mean you're gonna go back on the road?" So he just skied up and left. There I am with this building, and I got now a big building, but I don't have much equipment. So I said, I'll just take what I got and put in a big part of the other building and turn it into Oates Gym. And that's what I did. And I'm a son of a gun if it didn't take off. It took off. It was.
That's something. It just that is amazing. You go from one you'll do one thing, but this other kicks, and then this other thing kicks off. Just amazing stuff. Now, you're talking about you said you were raised in Columbus, Georgia.
Born and raised here, yeah.
When you were growing up, when you were watching wrestling, who was it that you tuned in to watch?
Well, when I really started watching wrestling, I was not even a teenager. We used to get wrestling out of Chicago, from the amphitheater out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I started watching that, and I said, man, that's something. That's when I got sick. I got a bad kidney infection, and I had to have a homebound school teacher. I couldn't do any sports for a year. I couldn't do anything, and I said, man, I think I could do that. I'd watch it, and I had gone to wrestling here in Columbus since I was a kid, and and then my sister marries Dickie Steinborn,
Right.
and then the rest is history from there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing story. Your career certainly. Out of all those places you worked, which place was your favorite?
Which was my favorite? I really loved Oregon. We had a good crew out there. Snooker was there. Ed Wiskowski was there. Buddy Rose was there. Jesse was there. It was just a heck of a crew. And Don Owens was a great payoff man. Another place I worked, a great payoff man was Paul Bosch. Great payoff man. But yeah, I loved it out there. I actually loved it. Of course, I mean, when you talk about the Carolinas, they ran 3 towns a night then. Three
Right.
towns a night. And there was towns I never went to. I mean, we went all the big towns like Charlotte, Greensboro, Richmond, Hampton, Norfolk. I mean, we were not every night. We were in the big towns. Some of the talent I never saw.
Wow. How many productions at that time were they doing in the Carolinas?
We used to go to Raleigh and do TV in Raleigh, and they had some great talent up there. Flair was really over, and Valentine was there. Paul Jones was there. Wahoo was there. Mulligan was there. Murdoch was there. I mean, they just had talent everywhere.
Wow. Good times. No doubt about that. Yeah, it's fantastic. When you were, who was one of your favorite people to work with?
I get asked that all the time. Now you're asking me my favorites.
Your favorite? Who was it that you knew when you got in that ring it was going to be a great match?
Dick Murdoch, Carl Cox, Harley Race.
Wow.
I wrestled Jack too when he was a world champion. He was the first world champion I ever wrestled. I wrestled him in St. Joe, Missouri for the first time and won an hour with him. And those were my favorite guys. I always had great matches with them. Great matches.
Wow. You seem to it seems like I mean you worked in Georgia for you said you didn't work for Gunkel, but you were there during that whole mess. And of course, we covered the Gunkel Enterprises and the beginning of the Atlanta War. And it is funny that you were talking about they ran the towns Augusta on the same night. You said you were at the Bell Auditorium, and then you said that Gunkel was at a skating rink. Was that pretty much the way it was every night?
Not every
Same,
night.
both.
I ran Atlanta either Monday or Tuesday, and we ran it on Friday. And that's when they started. Lester Welch was there. He bought the territory, and he I was on the first card they ever had at Omni. They went in Omni the first time.
Is that when it first? It was that when it was first built.
I really don't know, Roddy, how old it was.
Yeah, that we always loved going to the city auditorium. We thought that was the best atmosphere for wrestling anywhere.
Yeah, I hated wrestling in the Omni.
You did, you hated the Omni.
I hated it.
Wow.
I tell you, the buildings I liked the best in Georgia was the Bell Auditorium in Augusta and the City Auditorium in Atlanta. They were built for wrestling.
Yep.
Exactly. And I don't you think though when they closed the city auditorium in Atlanta, that hurt?
I do.
I agree with you on that. Absolutely agree with you on that. I
And
think we can go ahead and get started with some questions here. Brent, do you want to go ahead and throw them up? We got Glenn Shelton. He's saying, hello, everybody. Wesley Strickland. Good evening, gentlemen. And Wesley's from right there in Columbus, Georgia with you, Jerry.
Good.
David Mulls. He's with us tonight. Larry Bebuck Headcock. He's asking how everybody's doing. We're all doing good here. James William Lawrence III. Hello, gentlemen, and greetings from Charleston, West Virginia. Yvonne Burns. Hello again from Western PA. Charles Alfred's with us again. Thank you for Charles for always being here. Kevin Penley. He's with us tonight. And of course, Gary Allen Shelton. And he says you're one of his favorites.
Well, I appreciate
it. Victor Nash, he's back with us, one of our supporters. And thank you, Victor, for coming by. Mike Schaefer, it's good evening, everybody. And there is the chaplain, Freddie Rooster Roper, one of our artistes, saying hello to everybody.
That's good. I appreciate that.
Let's see. Oh, go back to that again. I missed part of that. Sorry about that. He said, Jerry, he said he always enjoyed you and your brother in the good old days of wrestling.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mr. Roper. Missed on part of that. There's Scott East. He's saying hello to you, Jerry.
I appreciate that.
Larry Gross. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Gross. Mickey Mayfield, you and your brother were my favorite tag team, not just because you were from Georgia. And so
I think that has something to do with it.
You think it did?
Yeah, I think Mickey, that's the reason he likes it. Likes it.
Let's see. Chad Mojo Hitter Coleman. That's the fine name right there if you've ever been. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mojo Hitter. And Wesley Strickland. Jerry, I remember when you had Oates Gym in Warm Springs Road. I got an autographed picture from you.
But I'm still on Warm Springs Road in another location. He can come by and get another one.
Come on by. Back on Warm Springs. Daniel Lang. How did Marty Jannetty become Marty Oates?
You know how many times I've been asked that? I'll tell you how that happened. And a lot of people think he's still Marty Oates, but he's not. But anyhow, there was a split. Larry Manizak started promoting St. Louis. You know, Larry did the TV there at the Chase forever. And he and I became good friends when I was out in Kansas City. And so he called me. He told me he was going to start promoting out there. And my brother at the time was wrestling in Kansas City for Gunkel. And, you know, Harley had a piece of that out there. So Harley, I was at my gym, and a guy that worked there with us said, "Hey, there's somebody on the phone for you." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "It's Harley Race." I'm going, "Oh God." He found out that I was coming to St. Louis for Manizak. We wrestled at the where the St. Louis Blues ice skated. Played hockey, the Blues Arena, and we didn't go to the Kiel. And so he said, I get on the phone. He said, "Hey, Daddy," he said, "I've known Harley forever." He said, "What are you trying to pull?" I said, "What?" I said, he said, "What's this about you going to work for Manizak in 2 weeks?" I said, "Harley," I said, "I'm sitting here at the gym and all these promoters around. They'll call me every now and then. They know I'll come work for them. I used to go to Detroit for the Sheik, which I don't know if that was good or bad, but I used to I do Atlanta TV and go to the airport and go to Detroit. But anyhow, I said, look, he said, if you wanted to work St. Louis, why didn't you call me? I said, well, you knew I was sitting at home and my brother's sitting out there in Kansas City. So what it was, Manizak wanted the Oates brothers. So I told him, I said, look, I've trained this kid. He's going to be good one day. And Marty was green as grass. So I said, I got a kid. I'll bring him out there as my kid brother. And he said, okay. And that's how that started.
Wow. So there you have it. There you have it. Kevin Penley. I can remember Ted and Jerry wrestling in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He was asking if the promoter was Billy Golden.
That's who it was.
All right. Billy Golden was the promoter. Richard Hood, one of our supporters. He says hello to everybody.
I talk to Richard on a daily basis. Great guy.
He knows a lot. He says, "What's up, Jerry?"
Yeah, he tries to stump me all the time.
Oh,
yeah. Greg.
Scratch my head. I said, I'll get back to you in a minute.
Greg and Victoria Hodge. Jerry Oates, one of the best.
Yeah, I'll get to see them tomorrow.
Right. Richard, to everybody, Jerry is my friend and my favorite wrestler.
Richard's a great and smart man.
Richard Brooks. Hi, guys. And hello, guys. Go ahead. Wayne Dobbs. Hello, Jerry. I'm from Columbus, brother. Go to the gym many times. I love Jerry and Ted.
I appreciate that.
Rita Cantrell. Good evening. Mickey Mayfield. Love the picture from your new gym on Facebooks, and the ones from the reunion look like you had a great night.
I'll tell you what, I had a lot of great things in my life. That was the most awesome thing that I'd ever seen.
The reunion?
Yeah, it was awesome. Guys I hadn't seen in 30 years.
Wow.
And guys that I wouldn't have thought would have been there, they were there and brought their wives and girlfriends. It was just overwhelming.
Wow. Wow. Larry Roberts. Hey, Jerry, and you and Ted. Let's see. Hey, Jerry, you, Ted, Mr. Wrestling 2, and Big Bill Dromos were all my favorites. Much enjoyment as a youngster growing up in Columbus. Did you ever face Mr. Wrestling 2, and did you ever defeat Harley Race?
I said earlier, I beat Harley Race when he was a world champion, right in Shreveport on TV.
That's right. You were North American champion.
Wrestling 2, when I started in Florida, he was wrestling as the grappler. And he's the first person I ever wrestled on TV in Tampa. And if he was still with us, he'll still talk about the mat burn he gave me. It took about a year to heal that thing. He said, God, man, I've never seen one that big. I said, of course it's me. Of course, that's who it would happen to.
Well, how did you get the mat burn?
You must have never wrestled him.
No.
I did.
Jack knows.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. He and I were great friends. And when Johnny went back out there, when he left Atlanta one time, he was out there working for Watts. And I was going back every week to Louisiana when I had my gym here. I was going back every week, and I stayed with him. And he was a great guy. He and I were really close. I know when I had my first knee surgery, I tell everybody this. I had my first knee surgery in 1977, and wrestling was always on Wednesday nights here in Columbus, so I was operated on Wednesday, and so that evening I woke up. It was like 6:45, or close to 7 o'clock, and I opened my eyes, and somebody's holding my hand, and I'm not paying any attention to that, and I look in the room. The room it's packed with people. I'm thinking, where am I? And I look over to my right, and there's a guy with a mask on. It was two. He came in the hospital like that with his hood on, and people were following him down the hall. I said, "Oh, I've died and gone somewhere." But he would come by and see me every Wednesday after the matches. He'd come by and see me. Did I need anything? Or I mean, he was super to me, and we became great friends.
Wow. All right, Wayne Dobbs. He said he loved Fred Ward Promotions. They really did have a good run.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Dennis Mitchell. Hey, Jerry, thumbs up to you. I have a question for Jerry. I saw you on the internet that Fred Ward was born in Montgomery, and not sure if Jerry knew that or not. How would you compare Fred Ward to other wrestling promoters you work for?
Well, I have a niece. Fred Ward is her great granddaddy, and
Wow.
so
So all in the family.
yes. So he was always good to me. Les Thatcher used to say that I had we did TV. They had an arena here. That's all they had years ago when I was a kid, and that's where they did the TV later on. And Les Thatcher always screamed that I had a cot down there. I said, no, I don't have a cot down. But he was great. He was great. I love working for him. He promoted Columbus and Albany and Macon. And when he got older, he'd say, "You in Macon tonight?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "All right, come on up to my house and we'll go in my car." I said, "Okay." He had a new Mercedes. I said, "I ain't got no problem pulling up and making a new Mercedes." He'd always let me do the driving. He was great to work for. He was great. He was great.
Steve Kane, Augusta. That's where I would go every Monday night. So Steve saw you in Augusta.
Well, like
Ken,
we said, great building.
Ken Penley, did you ever work for Nick Goulas?
I did one time.
Tell us about that.
Y'all are asking me. I'm just going to be honest. I'm honest with everything I'm telling you. My brother-in-law told me, he said, "Don't ever go to Tennessee, ever." He told my brother and I that both. And so when we was working for Bill Golden in Montgomery, we got booked in. Did they do TV in Huntsville?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So we're in Columbus, and we drive to Huntsville. That's a hike from Columbus, Georgia. It was on a Saturday. And so we go up there and work TV for him, and he pays us. We work with the Von Bronners. We get back. I see Golden on Monday night. I said, "Bill Golden, I don't put demands on any promoter. I'm not like that." I said, "Don't you ever book me ever again for Nick Goulas."
Got one of them good payoffs, did you?
That's where I'm going. You know where I'm going. He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "My brother-in-law told my brother and I don't ever work for that man." I said, "He was more than right." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "That man handed us $10 a piece." From Columbus, Georgia to Huntsville. You make that trip and see how it works out for you.
Yeah.
I never.
Oh, boy.
Well, I did that one time.
Well, at least you said you worked for him at least once.
Yeah.
Norman Carr, one or all of you need to do a book on Georgia wrestling. It was a promotion like none other, and the book would be great. Jerry could probably write it for sure, no doubt about it. Wayne Dobbs, he loved the Columbus Municipal Auditorium. It was great wrestling arena, no doubt about it.
It was good building for wrestling.
Robert Ewing, good evening to everyone. And we go. Wayne Dobbs, Jerry, say hi to your nephew. Not no for me, brother.
He meant
Y'all
Bo.
stay safe.
He said, "Say hi to your nephew, Bo."
Oh, Bo. Well, he said no.
Bo's my son. Bo's my son.
Bo's your son, not the nephew. Okay, well, okay. There we go. We'll clear it up eventually. Mike Fowler's wanting to talk about Ric Flair. We're not sure why. Tom Moody. I saw Jerry and Ted wrestle in Columbus many times in the 70s.
Yep, we wrestled here many, many times.
Greg and Victoria Hodge. We love you, Jerry. and you're never boring. All right, that's
I
what we're
hope
talking
not.
about. Victor Nash, Jerry, I know if anyone ever told you you resemble Freddie Blassie.
Well, that might be a compliment.
Well, I mean,
Classy Freddie Blassie,
Yeah,
the Hollywood
right.
fashion plate.
I
You
remember.
always calling everybody else the pencil neck geek, but never the pencil neck geek yourself. That's good. Any Rick Brooks, any battles with Killer Carl Cox in Georgia or Florida?
No, just Louisiana.
All right. Brian Brody Green, thoughts and memories of working for Sam Mechnick.
You know, back in my heyday and way before my heyday, that was if you wrestle in St. Louis, I mean that was like the epitome of wrestling. Uh, it wasn't a territory; it was a town. And every time I would be there, I got to wrestle on two main events there. Now that I was proud of that. And you every time you'd go there, you see guys from all over the country there. Gagne would be there. Wilbur Snyder would be there. Guys from Florida would be there. It was just an unbelievable place, and that Kiel Auditorium was just a wonderful building to wrestle in.
Wow.
And you could just snatch a headlock and they go crazy.
And that's the way to be. That's the way to be. Next question there, Brent. Norman Carr, did you any of you ever work with Eddie Mansfield?
Yeah, that's another story. He's from Columbus. I don't want to get into all that.
You don't want to get into the Eddie Mansfield story?
No.
Well, we'll put that in the book. We'll wait and put that one in the book.
We should.
And there is Steve Kane again. He's wanting to know about the book. You got to write the book, Jerry, for sure.
Everybody's trying to get me to do it, but mine. If I was to do it already, mine would be nothing but the truth. Not that I beat every guy to death in every territory, or I've never read any guy's book, never. And I mean, what's wrong with the truth?
Yeah.
I've heard guys saying they were there when Brody lost his life, and they weren't. And I know we were making a trip one day. I think I was in Louisiana. And I don't know how well y'all knew Jack Briscoe. I knew him very well, respected him, and everybody else should have. And they was talking about, I was in so I was in Oregon. I beat this guy up in the dressing room. I did this to a guy in the ring. Blah 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 blah. And there was four of us in the car. I was driving. I had enough of it. I said, "Let me ask you guys something." I said, "How come none of y'all ever say anything about Jack Briscoe?" Huh? I said, "Jack Briscoe." I said, "I'm sure y'all wrestle him. Y'all don't say anything about him." Well, no. I said, "You know why? If it ever got back to him, you know what would happen to you." He was a great guy, but I'm telling you, that man took nothing off nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, a great guy in the ring, and everybody knew his record, who he was. What he never talked that stuff, and all the guys, and I have guys ask me even today at the gym, who's the toughest guy you ever wrestled? But they wouldn't understand, like
Right.
Briscoe, Harley. Jack was a guy that y'all know his record. He never lost in college. 2-time NCAA heavyweight wrestling champion. He could fight. He could wrestle. But he never talked that stuff. The guys that were the baddest guys I was ever around in the dressing room, they never said nothing.
Yeah.
Get your loud mouths in there, and I'd sit there and watch Harley and Briscoe look at them guys. I said, "Y'all keep it up. Just keep it up. You gonna find out what bad is."
Kevin Penley, who was the better promoter? Who was the better promoter, Paul Bosch or Don Owens?
Well, Paul really just ran Houston, and he was an old-time wrestler, and he took care of the boys. And Don, of course, he never wrestled at all. I think his dad that started that.
Yeah.
They were both great payoff men. They loved the boys. They took care of the boys, and that would be hard to say. That would really be hard to say.
Mayfield. We were blessed growing up to watch the Oates brothers wrestle in Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Well, I appreciate that.
Wayne Dobbs, Jarrett. It's been Jerry. It's been a long time in Columbus. Where did you wrestle? Where did you wrestle? Let me try that again. Jerry, it's been a long time in Columbus. Where did wrestle? Was it Front Street? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get that right. He said it was the arena. Was it on First Street Avenue or Second Avenue?
Front Avenue.
Okay. And he said, and then Tom Moody had the sports arena. Yeah, I've been to this. Me and Brent, we've been to the sports arena many times.
Oh, I know y'all
did you ever go to the sports arena?
Yeah.
That was a great little place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. Tom Moody, I went almost every Wednesday night to Municipal Auditorium. Rick Brooks, ever worked with tough Tony Bourne?
No, he was a little ahead of my time.
Ahead of his time. Okay. Charles Alfred, did you work with Gordon Soley?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Awesome. Gordon and I know he when he was still doing TV up there when things changed. You know, Ole was out, and then Turner took it over, and he had to have surgery here in Columbus, and I'd pick him up at the airport and take him up to Houston Clinic. He had a hip replaced, and Dr. Andrews fixed his ankle and replaced his hip. And he told me, he said, I know you from the time you started. He said, if you used to go up there to Atlanta now, he said, I guarantee you'd sit there, open your bag, and sit there 10 minutes, fold your bag up, and walk out.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I said, I'm sure I would.
Wouldn't doubt it. Let's see. Randy Hogan says hi to all. All right,
Hey, Randy.
All right. Tom Alexander, hello there. Stuart Kemp back with us. Hello, Stuart. S. White from Albany, Georgia. Did Mr. Oates work many times in Albany? And did he ever work with Jerry Stubbs?
Yeah. The first time I ever wrestled in Albany, it was Allison Skating Rink. Wrestled there for years for Mr. Ward. And then they built a civic center there. And then we went there. But did I ever wrestle Jerry? Not that I know of.
I barely remember going to the skating rink. It had an awesome atmosphere.
It did. You'd have been. Oh, we're talking about favorite buildings. My favorite building in the Carolinas was Columbia, South Carolina. Did you ever go to that building with your dad?
That was Township?
Yes.
No, we never got to go there.
It was unbelievable. It was
we went to Raleigh, and we always called that building the Saddle Building. There at the old Dorton Arena. Looked like a saddle to us. Exactly. We were little. I mean, I think me and Brent I was 3, Brent was 1.
I'll tell you another town I love to wrestle in. The Dothan Farm Center.
The Farm Center. That was a great place.
When they had the
great
dirt
atmosphere.
on the floor.
Yeah.
Pack that thing to the rafters.
David Lawson. Hey, Jerry, was wondering how it was working for Ole in Championship Wrestling from Georgia.
He was one of my favorite guys to wrestle for. Like I said earlier, if you did your job, you had no trouble with Ole.
Yeah, I don't understand why Ole got such a bad rap. I really don't. Basically, I believe it was the boss. He was the boss, and many people didn't like the boss. That was just
that's it.
Bottom line. Mike Rollerson, good evening, fellas. And good evening to you. Charles Bellflower. Jerry, I have missed the show. Let's see. I missed the show you did with Bobby Simmons and Michael Norris.
You know, we did that show for 10 years.
Wow.
That was on Georgia Wrestling History, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Can people still access those shows?
I think they're still, yeah. You can go to the archives.
Yeah, you gotta research it. I don't know if it's available directly from the site now. It seems like they had some kind of changeover with their carriers or whatever, but the stuff's still out there. You just have to look for it.
Excellent. Check it out. Look it up. Check it out. I'm sure it's great. Kevin Barkwell. I always thought you and Ted should have been the World Tag Team Champions and had a run against Ole and Gene. You were fantastic workers, and thank you.
That's a heck of a compliment.
Dan Masters. Amazing. Go ahead.
He's my friend.
10 amazing memories with my friend Jerry Oates, enjoying this. Hello, all.
Hey, Dan.
Ronnie Renfro. We love you, Jerry, Clarence, and Ronnie.
They're great guys. They worked out in my original gym forever. They were the strongest guys in there. Those three.
Michael's got a question. Hello, gentlemen, from Smyrna Beach, Florida. Was Milo related to Dickie? I think he ran Florida Championship Wrestling when I was a kid in the late 60s. Great days.
Milo was Dickie's dad.
Yep.
And Milo, I got to know him, and he, it's a long history about Milo. He's the world's strongest man, the first man in the world, squat with 500 pounds. And he came over from Germany and couldn't speak the language. And y'all remember Charlie Harbin?
Sure do.
Charlie Harbin told me the first time he ever saw Milo Steinborn. Guys back in the day, this is like 1932. And Milo, first time he comes to Atlanta. And guys back then, like Mr. Ward, when he was wrestling, he weighed like $175. And Milo weighed like 218 pounds. Here he is. He was the world's strongest man. And Charlie Harbin was telling me, because he knew I was Dickie. He knew Dickie when he was a kid. Charlie Harbin did. He said the first time Milo come to Atlanta, he said that man took his shirt off and started getting dressed. He said he was covered in veins, vascular, muscular, 218 pounds. If y'all knew Charlie, did you know him, Jack?
I knew of him.
He was the funniest guy in the world. He said, when he come off that stage in Atlanta at that city auditorium, he said them broads went crazy. He said they never, in 1932, said they ain't never seen nothing like Milo Steinborn. Yeah, and he worked for Atlanta, New York wrestling office, and of course he wrestled, and all over the country. And I know he told me one night after I left Florida, I always called him and stayed in touch with him. I was in awe of him. He come over here, couldn't speak the language, and did all the great things he did. He said, yeah, I hear Dusty Rhodes and those guys talking about all the money they make. He said, 1926, he said, I was in, 1928. He said, I was in Wichita, Kansas and made $700. Can you imagine?
Wow. Well, I believe we've come up to the, we're going to do one more question here. My favorite wrestlers were Jerry Oates, Jerry Stubbs, and Mike George. And that was from Timothy T. Oliver, Sr.
I appreciate that. Mike and I were partners there for a while in Kansas City. We did great together. And then when I went to Louisiana, we wrestled each other a lot. And then I went to Oregon. Mike was there. We had a lot of great matches there. And Mike's a real dear friend of mine.
Excellent. Well, we're going to have to make that the last question. I know we didn't get to everybody, and I'm sorry about it. We got to have you on again, Jerry. This was so much fun.
Masters just put on there. If he'd have known, he'd have brought the shirts. That's a long story. I'll tell y'all next time about that.
That would be awesome. Absolutely awesome. As always, we thank everyone for joining us. Jack, we thank you very much. We're going to go over to our supporters page. So all of our supporters, come on over, and we got some things we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about World Championship Wrestling. Today's wrestling. And Jerry, as always, it was awesome to see you. And we hope we can get you on soon because, like I said, we didn't get half the questions in. Maybe next time, though. So thank you very much for coming.
Well, it's an honor for y'all to have me.
Sure was. We thank you so much.
Thank you,
all
guys.
right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to let that be the last word. We thank you very much on behalf of all of us here at Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. Jerry Oates, Jack Lord, Brent West, who's in the back. I'm Rodney West, and we'll see you on the next Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.
Thank you, guys.